Welcome to the Choosing Known podcast. I'm Laura Catherine Etheridge, and I am glad to be back with all of you and back with you today, Camille.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
Yeah, and we are excited. We're going to begin to unpack the attributes of God and His names. There are so many places in the Bible we could start, as we've already shared on this podcast. It's one gigantic story, and we see God, and then we see Jesus, and He's the example of the Father. And so there's a lot of places we could begin. And today we are going to actually start with a passage we find in Exodus. It's Exodus 34, 6 through 7. And I'm going to read it. And then I think, Camille, it'd be nice if maybe you give us just a little context on where is this all happening. So Exodus 34, 6 through 7, it says this: the Lord passed before him, and this is actually Moses, who is the him here. The Lord passed before him and proclaimed, the Lord, a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness, keeping steadfast love for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, but who will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquities of the fathers on the children and the children's children to the third and the fourth generation. So we have this description of God. He is proclaiming of himself, this is who I am, to Moses, and maybe share where is Moses? Where does this description of God land?
Great question.
Yeah.
I guess this is a really good starting point because, this is a place in Scripture where God is actually describing himself.
Yeah.
And then it gets repeated, or referred to throughout the Scriptures. And then, of course, we see it in the life of Jesus as he is doing his work in the New Testament. So here in the context here, the people of God have just come out of 430 years living in Egyptian territory. Part of that time they were guests. A lot of that time they were slaves. And God has just miraculously delivered them. And they're headed towards the land that God has promised them, but they're in the in-between space. Which, in-between spaces, they're transitions. And transitions are often very scary and can be feel very insecure. And they were feeling that. Who is this God? I mean, just a couple chapters before this one, Moses had gone up to the mountain to meet with God and to get God's instructions for how to live. And the people thought, well, he's gone too long. We'll just, create a new God. And they just took all their jewelry and threw it in the fire. And they actually created this metal calf, that became their new God. And then Moses comes down and, and he's, really upset. And then he actually goes back up the mountain to get the instructions the second time. That's the context of Exodus 34. And so Moses, is the leader and no one else wanted to go with him. I mean, it's, in a sense, it shows us the holiness of God. The sense of mystery, he went up the mountain and into the cloud, not knowing who's he going to meet here. And then Moses says, Lord, please show me your glory. Basically, that means, please show me who you are. What are you like? And the Lord responds to him, the Lord, kind and gracious and forgiving and full of steadfast love. But it's interesting because he calls himself the Lord. So he repeats it.
Yeah.
And so, it's a time where God's people are trying to clarify who's our God. Because, there are many gods. They had just come out of Egypt, and there were lots and lots of different deities that people worshipped in Egypt. They were familiar with them. Now here they are in this transition space. They're going to be going into a promised land full of other cultures and all of their deities. And so they're going to have to choose which God am I going to serve? Which God am I going to love? What are the characteristics of these gods? And so God says, well, I am the Lord, which basically says, I am the God above all the gods. So it's not that there aren't other gods. There are. There are lots of gods that people worship in the world. You know, there are gods of different, religions. You know, there's Buddha, there's millions of Hindu gods. There's the gods of culture, like worshiping money or fame or power or control or image. And so basically this passage is saying, this is who the real God is,
Yes.
the God above all gods, the Lord, kind, gracious, merciful, abounding in steadfast love, forgiving, but not clearing the guilty, a God of justice, a God of mercy. So Moses is being introduced basically to God, but God is making the introduction. It's a holy moment when you think about it in terms of the situation that they're in. And Moses is going to come back down the mountain to share this description with the people. But what's interesting is when he comes down the mountain, he doesn't realize his face is shining. And people are afraid of him because they're like, something happened up there.
Yeah.
Moses just encountered something, and his face is shining. And he had to put a veil over his face so that people would even feel comfortable coming close to him. So something holy has really transpired here. He has encountered the God of the cosmos, the God who created heaven and earth. The God who is the uncreated one.
Yeah.
And so that's the context of it.
Yeah, and it's just beautiful because it's like here too we see him saying it twice, the Lord, which all those doubles in scriptures, they're there for us to catch our attention.
Yes.
And here's the context, and I also want to kind of double click on a piece you said, which was we have gods today. Sometimes I think because we don't think of them as little idols that look the same as what we imagined back then, we can sometimes think, well, we don't have any.
Yes.
Yet we do. Image, power, you're mentioning these fame, reputation. What do people think of me online?
Yes.
And, one of the things I sometimes watch in my life and then spending a lot of times with people, it's like, what are the other parts of my life that I keep sacrificing to this thing? That's often a God.
It is.
Because I continue to sort of shovel these other components of my life kind of into the oven of this belief system. If I just did more at my job, if I just looked even better, if I just had more money, and it's like we often don't hear it talked about that way today, so we sometimes don't realize those can very much be gods, and it's not in a little statue shape necessarily. Right. Some of that still does exist, but they're still gods.
They are gods.
Yeah.
And there are different places of worship.
Yes.
You think about it, we often go to, Christians, we go to a church, Muslims go to,
The mosque.
Hindus go to the temple, but outside of that, Jewish people go to the, synagogues.
Yeah.
But within our cultural gods, think about going to your nearest mall.
Yes.
You walk into the store, it's all set up as a place of worship.
Yes.
And it's vying for your attention. You have the certain places where you actually give your money over to the gods.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really think about it.
Yes.
Our modern day shopping malls are set up to welcome people, create the sense of, I have a need.
Yes.
And this will meet your need.
Yes.
And here's where you pay for it. You know. And we don't often think of it like that, but it really is like that. Or, we can worship the God of social media.
Yeah.
We've got to be on it, so much we have to pay attention to every notification. We have to respond immediately. Or what will people think of me?
Yes.
It becomes like a God.
Yes.
It demands our attention.
Yeah.
We sleep with it next to us. I mean, so when we just have to put it in perspective, we're surrounded by a pantheon of gods all the time. And we have to choose well, who is the Lord,
Yes.
in my life?
Yes.
Who am I really giving my allegiance to? And this was the big question for God's people at this
Yes,
season.
it was.
Who am I going to really worship? And God often took the time to warn them and say, look, you're going to encounter so many different deities. And I want to tell you right now, they're not good for you. Some of these deities require human sacrifice.
Yes.
Some of these deities require prostitution. Some of these deities require, all of your goods, all of your money. You are going to be surrounded by these and tempted, to choose them as your God. But I'm saying, listen, I am the Lord, the Lord.
Yeah.
I am above them all. I am good. I am the maker of heaven and earth. I have all power. I'm full of love. I am good. You can trust me. Choose me, and you choose life.
Yes.
Choose these things, and you're choosing actually the opposite of life, which is death. And so that's the context here. It's in a completely different time of world history that many times is kind of confusing to us, but it made total sense to those people.
It did. Yep.
And when you fast forward to where we live today and you put it in our context, it makes sense too.
It does. It does. And I think, and like you're saying, like malls and some of those things, we look at them at face value, and to us, it's just a mall. And sometimes a piece that helps me to sort of say, is this a God in my life, or is this maybe a God? Do I believe that whatever that is will make me safe and will make me successful? And if I do, I'm going to sacrifice to it. I'm going to buy it.
Right.
I'm going to keep going and getting more of it as much as I can, because there's a belief behind it. That's the spiritual power piece. It's like, I've attributed to this safety and success. If I have that, I will be safe and successful. And then the opposite of that we don't like to think about is, well, if I don't, then I'm going to be a failure, and I'm in very much danger.
Right.
And so my image cannot fail.
Right.
My fame cannot fail. I cannot afford to lose the likes and the clicks and the followership, because it's my God.
Yeah, it becomes my identity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so then it's in me, it's incorporated in me as this belief system. And I know we shared earlier, previous episodes, we want to take these things that we learn about the Father, and then we are going to use stories and snapshots. And so one of those today we want to look at is the story of Zacchaeus. And we'll unpack the story here in a moment, but we see Jesus, and we see Jesus being the example in the New Testament. It's the same God. He is showing this aspect of the Lord in how he interacts and how he is present with, in this case, this man Zacchaeus that we meet in Luke.
Yes, and I'd love to read that.
Yeah, Luke 19, 1 through 10.
So this is, maybe if you grew up in church, you probably are familiar with this story. If you didn't grow up in church, you might think, I never heard it before. No problem. But this is one of the encounters that Jesus had with so many people. And it says, Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through, and behold, there was a man named Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was rich. And he was seeking to see who Jesus was, but on account of the crowd, he could not, because he was small in stature. He was short. So he ran on ahead, and he climbed up into the sycamore tree to see him, for he was about to pass that way. And when Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today. So he hurried and came down and received him joyfully. And when they saw it, these are all the other people, they grumbled. And they said, he has gone in to be the guest of a man who is a sinner. And Zacchaeus stood and said to the Lord, Behold, Lord, the half of all my goods I give to the poor, and if I've defrauded anyone of anything, I restore it fourfold. And Jesus said to Zacchaeus, Today salvation has come to this house, since he is also a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost. And we can see in this passage, that last verse, Jesus has come to seek and save the lost. Zacchaeus was lost.
He was.
And what does that mean, he was lost? Well, he was lost in a lot of ways. He was, he was lost in like, well, what's really going on in my life? Chief tax collectors, in this time and period of world history, they were hated because they were the ones who collected the taxes.
And it was like more than an IRS agent.
Well, yeah.
In that time, it's very different because of the culture.
Exactly right. And they would extract the taxes. They often took too much. They defrauded people. They deceived people. They would torment people. They could put them in jail for not paying their taxes. And obviously he had benefited from this because it says he was rich. And so he would have had nice clothes. Yeah. He would have had a better house. He would have had position and prestige and power. He would have had all of those things. Sound familiar?
Yeah.
Same in the world today. He would have had all of that. It would have been for him the good life. But something was off.
Yes.
And he recognized it because he wanted to see this simple rabbi named Jesus who was passing through Jericho. Why? We have to ask ourselves, why was he attracted to Jesus? Jesus lived a simple lifestyle. He wasn't rich. He didn't have a lot of prestige. He was a simple rabbi coming through, but he was healing people. He was casting out demons. He was telling people the truth. He took care for the widows and the orphans. He cared about children. He treated women with respect and dignity. And word was spreading about this rabbi that he was different. And Zacchaeus obviously had heard about him, and he was like, I've got to see him.
Yeah.
And then, he's too short. And so he figures when Jesus passes through the crowd, he's going to miss him, right? He's not going to even be able. All he wanted was to see him. And then here he is, this dignified man in all of his robes, and he's not wearing a pair of pants, No. In that time they were wearing robes. He climbs up a tree.
Yeah, so
which
awkward.
is very undignified. And so he could see Jesus.
Yeah.
And then Jesus stops and looks at him, not with hate. Many people were looking at him with hate.
Oh, yeah.
He looks at him and he says, Zacchaeus, I'm coming to your house. This is so radical. This is the Lord, gracious and merciful and compassionate, saying, I'm going to come to your home and be with you. I mean, this is the unpacking of what we see in Exodus 34 when God describes himself to Moses. Here he is he's making himself known to Zacchaeus, a man who is truly lost but doesn't know it. But he knows that something's off, something's missing, because he wants to see Jesus.
Yes. Well, and he has it all. I mean, when we read the description, it seems like, well, he has it all. He's wealthy. Yeah. He's the chief tax collector. I mean, that's the big title.
Totally.
He's got the big title at work, but he's, you were sharing something earlier yesterday about, but he's kind of sold his soul to Rome. Yeah. I mean, he's had to have this. He's had to lay down parts of who he was. He's had to sacrifice those. He was working for someone who was not his people. He lived in a community where they didn't even probably like him at all because of what he had done. And so, but he did all that, and now he's the successful man.
Right.
But something is going on, and it's not satisfying because he wants to see this Jesus who lives so opposite of him in so many ways. And then he already begins to be willing to be very undignified in all this that he's doing to see this Jesus. And like you're saying, he's thinking, well, that's probably all I get. At least just to get a glimpse at this guy. In one of these verses, it says he wanted to see who he was. And to me, it's like, I just got to see who is this guy. But then once he's up there and he is just thinking he gets the glimpse, Jesus looks right at him.
Right at it and sees right into his heart.
Yeah.
And that's how Jesus is. Jesus, the Lord, sees through all the layers.
Yes.
His eyes, in Revelation, it describes his eyes. It's like they're piercing, you know. They cut through the layers of our lives right to the real issues.
Yeah.
What's going on in your heart?
Yeah.
Where's your anchor?
Yeah.
Where's your identity? Where have you placed your hope?
Yes.
You know, who is your Lord? Is it yourself?
Yeah.
Is it your position? You know, is it your money? Is it your possessions? What is it? He looks right through that man. But Jesus sees something in him, because Jesus says, I'm going to come to your house. So, which is fascinating, you know,
Yeah.
because that's not, obviously from scripture, you see, that's not popular. Everybody's like, what?
Yeah.
Jesus is going to go hang out with Zacchaeus and all the other tax collectors, these guys that have cheated us and defrauded us and taken our money, and, you know, they've sold their souls to Rome, and he's going to go hang out with them. And Jesus, you know, but then when he gets into his house, Zacchaeus shows that something has changed in his heart.
Yeah.
He has encountered the Lord, the Lord.
He has.
And he stands up and says, I'm going to give half of everything I have to the poor.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah.
You know, so be like today, somebody, you know, George Soros standing up saying, I'm going to give half of everything I have to the poor.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, and then he says, and if I've defrauded anybody, I'm going to pay it back 4 times as much, which refers back to Old Testament teaching about what you do if you've defrauded someone. How do you make it right? You know, restitution.
Yeah.
So he has experientially encountered Jesus, not just intellectually.
Yes.
But he has now experienced Jesus in his home. He has experienced the piercing eyes of the Lord, who can see through it all. And he says, I want to make, in his actions, he's saying, I'm going to make Jesus the Lord over my life.
Yes.
And I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to change my lifestyle.
Yes.
And the Bible doesn't tell us anything else about this man, but honestly, this is what we talk about. Life transformation, heart transformation is the goal of the gospel.
Yep.
It's the goal of knowing God, is that we would be made to be like him in his attributes. And we'd be different because his kingdom is different.
Yeah.
Think about the world we would live in today if many people said, you know what, I'm going to start sharing with the poor.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop defrauding people. I'm not going to take bribes anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not going to live my life, you know, controlling people and, you know, and using my position to oppress people. My goodness.
Yeah.
What a different world we'd have. But the power to change comes from the Lord,
It does. Well, and I think too, it's like we just see in his story this picture of when Jesus became the Lord. He goes to the highest place in Zacchaeus's life and in his heart, and then we see that be this release of he no longer needs those other things. And sometimes I think, how awkward was it to go back to his boss in Rome and say, I'm a different guy. I'm not the same man anymore. I'm not going to defraud these people. I'm not going to steal from them. I mean, but he didn't need that anymore because he had the Lord, who was a much better God to have. And he makes that adjustment. And I think too, for us, it's like sometimes we have things, sometimes we would say today, like, I'm addicted to this, or I'm caught by this. Like, I don't know how to no longer care about my image. I don't know how to stop being so obsessed about my work and being a workaholic, or I don't know how to do that. Right. And it's like, we want to invite Jesus in to be the Lord in our life and to experience, like you're saying, he experienced Jesus. He experienced the touch of Jesus. It was after that that he says, I don't need this anymore. And I'm going to begin to give out of this thing that had before been some of the gods that he had picked. And now he was turning around his life with the Lord.
And of course, the Lord in his character, and we're going to unpack so many of his attributes in this series.
Yeah.
the Lord, this isn't saying that God doesn't care about money.
No.
Or that you don't need money to live. He's
Yeah.
not saying that you don't need a job.
Yeah.
He's saying like within the job, you're going to do it differently.
Yeah.
I'm going to be the Lord over your job.
Yes.
And and I will lead you and guide you in how to do
Yes.
it well, and to do it with integrity, and to do it with mercy and justice. And I'm going to show you how to steward the money that you earn. So it's not, it's not a dichotomy.
Yeah.
It's like God is calling us to a very integrated life. Not this separation of, well, okay, then God, that must mean everybody has to be poor, or
Yeah.
everybody has to take a vow of poverty. The Bible isn't teaching that. It's just it's teaching that money is something that we use to live. But if it becomes a god in our life,
Yeah.
and it takes too much power, and it takes all of our attention, then it's not healthy. And then it eats us alive.
Yes.
Because like, how much is enough?
Yes.
Some people are just terrified.
Yes.
That they'll never have enough, and it just drives them, and it'll
Yes.
eat you alive.
It will.
I mean, I've
Yep.
experienced that, and so, God's saying, I don't want money to have that kind of power
No.
over your life, but
No.
yes, of course you need it.
Yes.
Right? And
Yes.
I'll provide, and
Yep.
you'll still, you still need to work, but it won't be your Lord.
No.
It won't be your God.
Demanding of you more
Exactly
and
right.
more.
It'll be something you steward.
That's right.
But I'll be your Lord.
That's right. And he is the Lord. And then we see this release that Zacchaeus can even show up that way. Because it's
Yeah.
like, if you are my Lord, I don't have to keep doing this. I don't have to keep living this
Right.
way. And so we see he is the greatest Lord. And it, takes me back to the passage we read at the beginning in Exodus. We see, well, yeah, and what is the Lord like? He's merciful and gracious.
Yes.
He's merciful. He's gracious. He's slow to anger. He's abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness. It's like, this is the God that's going to care for me. This is the God that's going to never leave. He's always going to be faithful to me.
Yes.
He's going to keep the steadfast love for thousands. What a God.
Yes.
The Lord, to
Lord, the
have in
Lord.
the highest place. And like you said, those other things are still in my life, but they're balanced. They're underneath this God that loves and seeks me out and is merciful and gracious and compassionate to
Yes.
me. And I have them, but they stay in their proper place.
Yes.
And they don't demand of me. I don't have to live for them. I live for the Lord.
Right. And it's a great way. I'm so glad that you're starting this series with the beginning of the description, the Lord, because it sets things in a
Yeah.
context.
Yeah.
As we unpack his attributes, we unpack it knowing that we are surrounded
Yes.
by a spiritual world.
Yes.
And that there are good parts of spirituality. There are
Yeah.
very evil parts of spirituality. There are, you see the influences all around us. So we live in a spiritual world, and we have to discern, what are those, who are the gods? What are we attaching ourselves to? What are we opening ourselves up to? And so it's great to put it in that context that we're starting with the very first attribute of God is the Lord, the Lord.
Yeah.
He's the God over all the gods. And he is altogether good, altogether loving, and he is for us.
Yes.
And he loves us, and he came to seek and to save the lost.
Yes.
So-
Yes. And I think for each of you, as we wrap today's episode, we would really encourage you. Look at your life. Look at what is pulling on you in your life. Where do you feel fear? Where do you feel concern? Where does it feel like I have to have this or else? And there's a lot of fear attached to it, or there's a lot of hope. I have to have this so that, and begin to see, are those things potentially in higher places inside of you and what you believe than is best, because they are not going to be gracious and compassionate. They're not going to be faithful to you. So we would just encourage you, as you are considering your own life, what do you see? And invite Jesus, this gracious, compassionate, slow to anger Lord, to be the Lord of your life.
Yes, that's a great way to end, Laura Catherine. And we would just invite you, like Zacchaeus, to get into a vantage point and see and discover who this wonderful God is.
Yeah, we will see you all in a few weeks, and look forward to picking it back up with you then.
Take care.